welcome back to another video. I wanted to make this video real quick because it was fresh in my mind. We actually just recently held our ID camp, the first of a few that we're holding in the spring season, just so we can recruit and finish off our roster. As we were doing the ID camp, I kind of got an idea of some things that I think would be beneficial for you guys if you are trying out for a college or you're interested in playing in college and you are signed up to go to a ID camp. So if you want to learn more, stay tuned to the video. And with that said, we're going to roll the intro real quick so we can jump right into it. As I said in the intro, we had just finished up our first ID camp of the spring season, just to kind of roll out and wrap up some of our spots that we have on our rosters. And I was thinking about some do's and don'ts, and this is primarily just from the first ID camp we had. There were a lot of things that kind of, you shouldn't do especially if you're trying to get onto a roster without anyone knowing who you are, really. So there's a difference between going to an ID camp. Obviously, IDs, you're being more identified. There's no real restrictions, from 9th grade to 12th grade. It's just to get on coaches' radars. If you're a senior and you're going for an ID camp, that is more likely you didn't get a lot of offers, you didn't really have coaches that were looking at you, so you're trying to make it to a university roster. If that's the case, there's some do's and don'ts that I think are important, especially from my point of view, because at any given ID camp, there's going to be several coaches who are looking at you, everyone with their own kind of checklist that they go through about how you're going to fit in with our players that we have and how you're going to fit into our style of play and just be a part of our community. So that's kind of important to think about, especially if you're going to these ID camp, because you have to remember that these coaches don't really know who you are. They didn't see you play games. They haven't talked to you on a personal level. They don't know, what you do on a daily basis. They don't know how long you've been playing, how many days, weeks, months, years you've been out. They don't know your skill level. So it's really good to just kind of keep some of these in mind when you're going. Again, this list is just me, and this is just off the top of my head. I wanted to do this real quick because it was fresh. So I have some do's and don'ts that I just want to read, and they are in no particular order. I'm not going to go through the do's and the don'ts. It's just kind of talking. So my first one that I will always say is you gotta relax. In the end, you're playing something that you love, you're passionate about, so you just have to think about that, and you just gotta relax, because in the end, it's a sport that you know and love and you know how to play it. So that's my number one thing: is as soon as you get to the field, just kind of relax, touch a ball, just calm down a little bit. The second one, this is kind of there's a do and there's a don't. Is one, you have to mingle, and mingle. You got to talk to, if there's other players, if there's coaches, if even people that are trying out. So if you came with a group, don't stick with just your little group, because that's kind of gonna show that. So if you came with a group, it's fine to stick with your group, but also try to incorporate other players that maybe didn't come with you. Or for our ID camp, we had such a small number, so we brought out some of our own players, and it was very easy to see that we had the people that came together as a group, we had our players, and then we had just the random ones that were kind of all over the place. So definitely mingle. That is the number one thing, especially if there's players from that university or that community college that are there. You're going to get a feel for what kind of guys they are, and maybe you just don't hit it off with those guys, or maybe you do, and they now you're making a friend, and now you might have a better chance of filling up a spot. And do not be by yourself. That's the worst you can do. Don't juggle by yourself. Don't warm up by yourself. Don't just sit down by yourself. Always try to talk to someone or pass with someone, because it's sport. It's soccer. Everyone needs to pass with everybody. Everyone needs to warm up. So always do that. In our most recent ID camp, I had to walk around and introduce myself to all the players, which, that's fine. They're all trying to make a good impression by showing off some juggling skills or, passing and stuff like that. So, that's fine. So, but me going around and introducing myself is a little time consuming. It should be the other way around. You really want to be the assertive guy. You really want to be the one that makes a good impression. It shows that you're outgoing, you're not shy, you're not really just going to stay in your shell, that you can open up easily. Kind of going back with number one, you got to relax, but you also have to play your style. And I think that is kind of a hard thing, because that is what coaches look for. It's kids that no matter the circumstances or the players that they're around, are they going to play their own style, or do they have to adjust their game because of maybe the level, the competition, or etc. So always play your style, relax, and if you showboat, don't showboat too much. Because in the end, it's a team sport, and that's what we're really looking for, is especially if you're coming in as one of the last people on the roster, you're going to be fighting for a spot. So being able to show your ability to work with other teammates and people you may not know is extremely important. So my advice would be focus on the fundamentals, good technique, show that you have a good brain, a good understanding of the game, and be communicative. Always talk, but don't be the loud, obnoxious guy. That's the worst you can do, especially if you can't back it up. That's the worst you can do. If you can back it up, that's fine. Be very vocal. Be the leader on the team. Maybe that's something a team needs. But if you're coming in to fill the last few spots, if you're going to be the vocal guy, be the vocal guy, but back it up. If you're going to be loud, assertive, telling people where to go, pushing them left or right, telling them to drop, go forward, you have to demonstrate that yourself in your own work ethic. So don't be the loud guy, but you're also just going to sit back, or you're not going to backtrack and tell everybody to, defend over there, defend over there. Demonstrate with your work ethic. The last few that I have are kind of a big one, because I don't think people really think that coaches see this, right? So this will show us what kind of mentality you have when it comes to dealing with players that you don't know. So when you join a new university or a new team, you're always going to take maybe a couple practice sessions to really figure out how the other players play, how you fit into this team, and eventually you'll have chemistry. So right off the bat, though, especially if you're trying out, the chemistry is going to be zero unless you're trying out with a bunch of friends and you guys all happen to be on the same team. The worst thing you can do at an ID camp is get frustrated by other players, because we see that. There were several players at our ID camp that were visibly frustrated. If moments that stick out vividly to me were if the play wasn't being switched to their side. They would kind of put their head down, they would walk back, they would get kind of like demoralized a little bit because they couldn't switch the ball over there, or if they tried playing a 1-2 and it didn't really work out, the player got frustrated. And the last thing you can do is don't get physical with another player. There's a difference. Getting physical because of the sport, that's okay. And that's perfectly fine. That's what we want to see. That we want to see that you're not afraid to go into a tackle. We want to see that you're not afraid to use your body, shoulder them off a little bit, but don't get frustrated to the point where you're pushing or you're shoving people from the back, or we can see that you may be losing in the game, and that's getting to you, because that's a small-minded mentality that we see very easily, and that's something that you should really think about. So when you go there, you need to relax, and this really comes into the bigger picture of it, is that you need to show that you have a cool head, you don't have a loose temper, you know the fundamentals, you have a good brain, and you get along. Those are the key things that you need to do, especially if it's someone that you don't know any of these coaches, and you're fresh. That's something that you should do, because that's going to stand out. There were two guys. There was one guy who was overly loud and, kind of trying to be the leader on the team, and he wasn't necessarily the most gifted player, but he had a good work ethic, right? But it just looked kind of forced. But he was very loud, he was telling people where to go, very team-oriented, really trying to work together. But then we had another guy, kind of quiet, spoke up a little bit, enough to where he can communicate with players, but he was technically gifted. He was very good with both feet. He was good at one-on-one. He was good at attacking. He had a good work ethic going from front to the back and everything in between. And there's the difference, that's the things that we look at in terms of what kind of players we think will fit our system. And that's just something that you have to take into these ID camps, is that you have to play your style. If you're a quiet guy, that's fine. Demonstrate how good you are by your technical skills, your brain of the game, your passes, your work ethic. You don't necessarily have to be vocal. Those are a few things that I think, if you're going into these ID camps coming up, those are just some pointers that I think will help out, especially since we just finished our first ID camp of the spring season. So I've seen some of these players who are looking for spots on teams, and these are some of the things that stuck out to me of what the goods and the bads are. So if you are going for an ID camp and you do need any more advice, shoot me an email with any questions you have, or highlight tape if you want, or anything that you may need to give yourself a better chance. I'm always willing to help out, especially if you want to make it to another level in this sport. That is something that I think everyone should attempt and try, is to go for it. You never know what kind of opportunities you're going to get. With that said, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. If you are a freshman and going into college, get as many touches on the ball as possible, get into shape as possible, and you got to get out of your comfort zone if you want to make something. So, as all YouTubers say, don't forget to smash the subscribe button, turn on post notifications, and like the video, and I will see you guys next time.